In a significant escalation of the ongoing conflict, Russian forces launched a massive drone assault on Ukraine overnight, deploying a total of 81 drones. This unprecedented strike resulted in the tragic loss of 4 lives and left 9 others injured, including a child, when an Iranian-made Shahed drone struck an apartment building in Sumy located in northeastern Ukraine. The Ukrainian military reported that 37 of the drones were intercepted while 39 others failed to reach their intended targets. The fate of the remaining 5 drones remains unclarified, intensifying concerns over the effectiveness of Ukraine's air defense systems. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky condemned the attack, labeling it a terrible tragedy and a terrible Russian crime. He emphasized the necessity for the international community to maintain pressure on Russia in response to such acts of terror. The strike on Sumy not only caused casualties but also resulted in significant damage, with 5 apartments destroyed and over 20 vehicles damaged, prompting emergency services to work through the rubble in search of survivors. The scale of the drone offensive reflects an alarming trend in the conflict, with the Ukrainian military reporting that Russia has suffered approximately 834,670 troop casualties since the onset of the war. Over the past 24 hours alone, Ukraine claims that 1,670 Russian soldiers have been killed or injured, underscoring the ongoing toll of the conflict on both sides. On the battlefield, Russian officials announced that their forces have gained control of the village of Novoielyzavetivka in the eastern Donetsk region, although this claim remains unverified by Ukrainian sources. The dynamics of the conflict continue to shift as both sides engage in a relentless battle for strategic positions in the war-torn regions of Ukraine, adding another layer to the complexities of the situation. Russian President Vladimir Putin has suggested that the war could come to an end within 2 months if Western military assistance to Ukraine were to cease. This assertion is seen as an attempt to undermine international support for Ukraine and frame the narrative that the Ukrainian government lacks sovereignty. Putin's comments are part of a broader strategy aimed at illustrating Ukraine as dependent on Western aid, despite Ukraine's demonstrated resilience in the face of Russian aggression. In parallel, Ukrainian forces have been conducting counteroffensive operations targeting Russian military assets. Recently, Ukrainian drones struck an oil refinery in Kstovo and an arsenal in Tver Oblast, creating significant damage and highlighting Ukraine's ability to project power even deep within Russian territory. As the conflict enters its 3rd year, the humanitarian implications remain severe. The recent drone strike and continued military operations exacerbate the already dire situation for civilians caught in the crossfire. The international community's response will be critical in determining the trajectory of the war and the prospects for peace. Looking ahead, the evolving military landscape and the geopolitical ramifications of these events will likely influence ongoing discussions among Western allies regarding military support to Ukraine. The potential for renewed negotiations, as suggested by Putin, raises questions about the legitimacy of any future agreements, especially given his position that any peace pact would be contingent upon the Ukrainian government rescinding prior decrees that restrict negotiations. In conclusion, the recent surge in drone attacks and the continued high casualty rates underscore the escalating violence in the conflict and the urgent need for a renewed focus on diplomatic solutions. As both sides prepare for what could be a pivotal phase in the war, the role of international support and the resilience of Ukrainian forces will be critical factors in shaping the future of Ukraine and its sovereignty. In an alarming escalation of hostilities, the ongoing conflict between Ukraine and Russia has taken a grim turn, marked by a significant aerial assault involving the deployment of 81 drones by Russian forces. This latest attack, which occurred overnight, has resulted in the tragic death of 4 individuals and left 9 others injured, including a child, after a drone struck an apartment building in Sumy, a northeastern city in Ukraine. The incident underscores the increasing severity of drone warfare in this protracted conflict, as both sides resort to aerial tactics that are reshaping the battlefield. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky condemned the attack, characterizing it as a terrible tragedy and a blatant Russian crime. He emphasized the importance of maintaining international pressure on Russia to prevent such acts of terror. The Ukrainian military reported that out of the 81 drones launched, their air defenses successfully intercepted 37, while 39 drones were thwarted from reaching their targets. However, the fate of 5 drones remains unaccounted for, raising concerns about the potential for further damages. The broader implications of this assault are significant, as it comes at a time when Russian military casualties have reportedly soared. According to Ukrainian sources, the total number of Russian troops killed or injured has surpassed 834,000, with 1,670 casualties recorded in just the past 24 hours. This staggering figure highlights the ongoing toll the conflict is taking on Russian forces and raises questions about the sustainability of their military strategy. In a parallel development, the Russian Defense Ministry claimed control over the village of Novoielyzavetivka in the eastern Donetsk region, although these assertions have not been independently verified by Ukrainian military officials. This claim, if substantiated, could indicate a shift in territorial control, further complicating the already volatile situation on the ground. The use of drones in warfare has reached unprecedented levels in this conflict, with both Ukraine and Russia employing unmanned aerial systems to achieve tactical advantages. Ukraine has notably employed suicide drones to strike critical Russian military infrastructure, including oil depots and command centers, demonstrating an ability to project power beyond its immediate borders. British military intelligence has observed that Ukraine's capacity to continually target Russian assets signifies an evolution in their operational capabilities. Conversely, Russia has increasingly relied on Iranian-made drones such as the Shahed series to augment its offensive capabilities. This partnership has allowed Russia to mitigate its own production shortfalls due to international sanctions and operational challenges. The Kremlin's reliance on such systems points to a strategic shift in their approach to aerial warfare, aiming to maintain pressure on Ukrainian defenses while compensating for deficiencies in traditional munitions. As this conflict continues to unfold, the international community remains watchful, particularly given the implications for future military engagements worldwide. The Ukraine-Russia war stands as a pivotal case study in the integration of drone technology into modern warfare, raising critical questions about the future of combat and the evolving nature of military strategy. The ongoing violence and civilian casualties underscore the urgent need for diplomatic solutions to the conflict. However, with both sides entrenched in their positions and the potential for further escalations, the path to peace remains fraught with challenges. In the coming days and months, the evolving dynamics on the battlefield will be closely monitored as the world grapples with the consequences of a conflict that has already reshaped geopolitical landscapes in Europe and beyond. And the ongoing conflict between Ukraine and Russia. Recent developments have underscored the severe toll the war continues to take on civilians and military personnel alike. Overnight, Russian forces launched a significant drone assault, deploying 81 drones targeting various locations across Ukraine. The Ukrainian military reported that while 37 of these drones were intercepted, the attack claimed the lives of 4 individuals when one drone struck an apartment building in Sumy, injuring 9 others, including a child. The devastation in Sumy, characterized as a terrible tragedy by President Volodymyr Zelensky, highlights the ongoing humanitarian crisis resulting from the war. As the conflict escalates, the Ukrainian military has reported staggering losses inflicted on Russian forces. In just the last 24 hours, Russia has purportedly lost 1,670 troops, bringing the total casualties since the onset of the invasion to over 834,000, according to Ukrainian officials. This grim statistic includes not only personnel losses but also extensive damage to military hardware, with Russia losing nearly 10,000 tanks and over 20,000 armored fighting vehicles, among other equipment. On the battlefield, Russia claims to have gained control of the village of Novoielyzavetivka in eastern Donetsk, though these assertions remain unconfirmed by Ukrainian authorities, as both sides continue to engage in fierce combat. The humanitarian implications of such attacks are increasingly dire, with civilians bearing the brunt of military operations. The international community has been urged to maintain pressure on Russia in light of these developments. President Zelensky emphasized the importance of global support in countering what he termed Russian terror. This sentiment is echoed in broader discussions about the need for sustained diplomatic and economic measures against Russia, particularly in the energy sector, which is crucial to its economy and military capabilities. Economic sanctions against Russia have intensified, particularly targeting its energy exports, which are critical for funding the war effort. The tightening of sanctions reflects a strategic effort by Western nations to undermine Russia's financial resources. Experts predict that the Kremlin could see losses of up to $24 billion in 2025 due to these restrictions, a significant blow that could impact its ability to sustain military operations. As the situation evolves, questions remain about the potential for peace talks and the conditions under which they might occur. Former U.S. President Donald Trump has indicated that he would use economic leverage to compel Russia into negotiations, a position that reflects growing concerns about the protracted nature of the conflict. However, the complexities of reaching a settlement are underscored by ongoing military actions and the entrenched positions of both sides. Looking ahead, the trajectory of the Ukraine-Russia war remains uncertain. The humanitarian crisis is likely to deepen as military engagements continue, and the impact of sanctions on Russia's economy will play a crucial role in shaping the conflict's future. Observers are keenly watching for any signs of a shift in strategy from either side, particularly regarding potential negotiations that could lead to a cessation of hostilities. As the international community grapples with these developments, the imperative for concerted action against aggression persists, underscoring the need for unity in the face of ongoing challenges in Eastern Europe. In an escalating conflict that has captivated global attention for nearly 3 years, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has issued a stark warning about the deteriorating situation, suggesting that Russia's ambitions extend well beyond its immediate borders. His remarks come amidst a backdrop of increasing hostilities, with experts predicting that a Western defeat by Russia may be only a matter of time unless the West acknowledges the gravity of the situation. Oleksandr Danylyuk, a specialist in Russian multidimensional warfare, asserts that the Kremlin views its ongoing military actions not just as a campaign against Ukraine but as a broader confrontation with NATO and the West. In a recent analysis for the Royal United Services Institute, Danylyuk emphasized the Kremlin's unwillingness to pursue a ceasefire, noting that Russia is ramping up its military production. All these indicators point to the intensification of Russian efforts not only to militarily seize Ukraine but also to destabilize and capture the West, he stated. This sentiment is echoed by Zelensky, who has called on international allies to bolster support for Ukraine as it navigates these turbulent waters. The situation has been further complicated by internal political dynamics within Ukraine. Danylyuk warned that ignoring the escalating threat could lead to dire consequences for the West. He remarked the stubborn refusal to acknowledge this fact by most Western leaders makes the West's defeat only a matter of time. As Russia continues to assert its military strength, questions arise about the legitimacy of Ukraine's leadership and its ability to negotiate peace. Zelensky has recently criticized Russian President Vladimir Putin for his refusal to engage in meaningful dialogue, claiming that Putin is afraid of negotiations and is actively prolonging the conflict. In his statements, Zelensky pointed out that the martial law imposed in Ukraine has prevented democratic elections, leading to claims from the Kremlin that his presidency lacks legitimacy. Putin has gone so far as to suggest that any peace negotiations would require a verification of Zelensky's legitimacy by legal experts. Meanwhile, the war's toll on civilians continues to rise, with reports of drone attacks resulting in casualties on both sides. The Ukrainian military recently launched a substantial drone strike against Russian energy facilities, while Russian forces have retaliated with aerial assaults on Ukrainian territory. The cycle of violence shows no signs of abating, with both nations entrenched in their positions. In a broader context, the international community is watching closely as the United States, under the leadership of President Donald Trump, weighs its response. Trump's administration has signaled a willingness to impose new sanctions on Russia, a move that could have far-reaching implications for the conflict. Zelensky has explicitly called for Trump to support Ukraine, asserting that a strong American stance could be pivotal in forcing Putin back to the negotiating table. As discussions of peace talks swirl, experts caution that the road ahead remains fraught with challenges. Keir Giles, a defense analyst at Chatham House, noted that while there appears to be a growing consensus in the West regarding the need for negotiations, both Russia and Ukraine may not view talks as beneficial. The complexities of the geopolitical landscape are compounded by the historical animosities and territorial disputes that have fueled this war. As the situation continues to evolve, the potential for further escalation remains high. And the call for a unified Western response is more urgent than ever. The coming months will likely be critical in determining not only the outcome of the conflict but also the future of Ukraine's sovereignty and its standing in the international community. The stakes are undeniably high, and the world watches as both Ukraine and Russia navigate this precarious path.